Hmm.
And I think for those winning teams, right, Tyler, the winning teams, this is the perfect time right now to buy injured or decline
Yeah.
or players who have not been playing well recently. I think
Hmm.
if you see the losing team has Nico Collins, you offer them a package that helps them get to the playoffs. You offer
Yeah.
them enough depth, especially you're 8-0 or you're 7-1. You go get Nico Collins. You go get Christian McCaffrey from a losing team. You try to
Hmm.
buy the players who have been. You go get Jaden Reed from losing team, like you talked about. Try to find the players who have not been performing and offer the players who you got for free. The players who have gotten you to 6-2, to 7-1, to 8-0. You can send a Kareem Hunt now if you want to, or maybe you send, you send another player off that you've got for free, but has like consistent value now. So for me, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking to turn, minimal investments into larger potential assets, and I'm giving up two to three of those players in order to get a locked in guy that I know is a stud, and then leave room now for the Blake Corums, for the Trey Bensons, for the players who could surprise us here down the stretch.
No, absolutely. Like trading away a guy that you got for free. I mean, I would have done this a couple weeks ago, but like a Jordan Mason, you know that the time
Yeah.
is limited with him. Obviously, can't do it now. But another guy, I would say, potentially, he started off well and he's still playing pretty well, but like the yards per carry, all the efficiency has been just declining, and that's J.K. Dobbins. You've gotten him
Yeah.
for free. You have Gus Edwards, who's going to be coming back. He'll probably be involved a little bit. I still think it'll be J.K.'s backfield, but you could be sitting on really 3, 4 good running backs, and you could trade a guy away from him or away like him, who's been good, who provides that team for a guy like Nico Collins, who upside is wide receiver one. Like, I'm not saying a 1-for-1, obviously, but
Right.
another piece with him. So, yeah, absolutely. Those would be kind of the guys that I would be going for. And then, like you said, stash. Like, I think this is the ultimate stash. Now, you still like, there's a couple teams in my leagues that are like 7-1. They're probably going to make the playoffs, like
Right.
unless their season just absolutely takes a turn for the worse. Those are the teams that are going to be making the playoffs. So if I'm one of those teams, yes, I'm just stashing at this point. I'm taking my Trey Benson, my Blake Corum, any premium handcuff, Braylon Allen, if he's somehow available, like somebody dropped him, I'm picking him up. All your premium handcuffs, I'm just stashing at the end of my bench. And then potentially, um, well, no, I wouldn't even look at it that far down the road. I'm just stashing all those running backs for these upcoming weeks where guys could potentially get hurt. Then
I'm,
once you're really close, defenses, like start planning for
yeah.
defenses
Yeah.
in the playoffs if you're able to.
That's, I would say, like week 12, 13. That's when
Yeah,
once you've got secured pretty much like a bye, if you're that kind of
yeah,
team, that's when you start looking at like defenses. But I think for like right now, I think one of the bigger things is like you take on the assets that other people can't, especially if there's not an IR spot. A guy like Mike
hmm,
Evans might be somebody's
yeah,
like, look, I just lost Mike Evans, but I can't go the whole season without him because I'm 3-5. Now I'm trying to go get Mike Evans from that owner, or like
yeah.
Jameson Williams has another week of suspension. Somebody might be like, look, I can't take on Jameson Williams suspension this week. I got to get a win. So I'm looking for options that right now I could trade for, that somebody else needs a win right now. I can give them a piece that maybe helps them win. But for me, I could take on maybe a loss or a weaker roster, I'll say, for 1 week. And I'm looking to acquire that as soon as possible, just because we know how fantasy goes. And in that, during the fantasy playoffs, the luck factor comes down to like, you want to have the highest upside that you can possible
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
championship, because we don't know what happens we saw this week. We don't know what happens on a week to week basis. I'll
Hmm.
say another name that might be a little under the radar now because of recent performance. And before Thursday, you probably have a good chance to get him as like a wide receiver 3, Devontae Adams. I think if
Yeah.
you can get Devontae Adams right now, we'll see. I don't know if he'll ever reach wide receiver 1 status, but I think we'll see better days if they are able to get a win or two here. That could be a player that like has a major boom here in the second half that we're not expecting.
No, agreed. Like you said, the biggest takeaway is just going after those guys that are at like bona fide studs, giving up multiple pieces for the teams to help them and just secure those studs for your run. Cause you know that's who ends up really winning your leagues are the studs.
Last year, I also would have said something, and I noticed neither of us has really talked about it. Last year, I would have said, or before last year, I'd have been like quarterbacks. If you got Jaden Daniels for free, if you had got Kirk for free, if you got some of these quarterbacks who have now been in the top 12, if you got them for free, trade off of one of those guys because you can never start two. But last year kind of taught me like maybe we got to hold these quarterbacks a little bit
There's so
longer.
many. Yeah.
It's
I mean, if I can trade away, I just don't know if people would do it. But if there's somehow I could get into like a Josh Allen, if say I have a really good quarterback, I don't even know if I would do that. Like a Jaden, I just keep Jaden Daniels. But
yeah,
like we know how good Josh Allen is. Like Josh Allen is, and Jalen Hurts. I mean, we saw it this week. 3 rushing
right.
touchdowns. Like those two guys are the only 2 quarterbacks that I'd be okay. It maybe if I have a Jaden Daniels, but I would probably just keep him. But if I had anybody below those 3, maybe a Kyler Murray, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take a Kyler Murray and then another piece just to lock in one of those. I think that the top 3 quarterbacks this year will be Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and probably Jaden Daniels.
What about when you have 2 quarterbacks, right? You have 2 quarterbacks. Say you drafted CJ Stroud, and then you also have now you have Kirk Cousins, right?
Mhm.
And normally what I would say is like trade Kirk Cousins away or trade CJ Stroud away and just rock with one of them for the rest of the year.
Well, I would try to trade like CJ Stroud for namesake and then another piece to lock in
But
one of those elite
honestly, I
elites.
think this year, I'm just saying, like, what these last 2 seasons have taught me, like, injuries can literally change the whole nature of your team. Like when you
Yeah.
lose a Godwin, you lose a Diggs, you lose like Jordan Love for a few weeks might be out. Like you just never know.
Yeah.
Last year was Joe
Are
Burrow
you
was just
saying
out for
so
the
you're
rest of the
saying
year.
keep the 2 quarterbacks just in case your quarterback
I've
gets hurt?
never been an advocate for keeping 2
But
quarterbacks. I think this year's a year to keep 2 quarterbacks.
you already know what I'm going to say, right? Like if I was in that situation, what I would be doing is absolutely be trying to pawn off one of those guys and another
Oh,
piece
Drake
to
May.
lock up an elite quarterback and then just roster Drake May. That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
That's my backup quarterback. That's my I mean, I keep saying it. 11 points in the first quarter. Are you kidding me? Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of guy. The upside is unmatched with that type of player. So yeah, I would be, because I think that quarterbacks, we saw it this year. The mid-round quarterbacks really are a disappointment outside of really like Jalen Hurts. We just know a little bit disappointing, but then he has nearly 40 points this past week because
Yeah.
the rushing, like that's just always, and then Josh Allen, just the dude is the only quarterback in the NFL that can pass for 30 and run for 10. Like that's the only guy. So those are the 2 guys. I don't think there's any way you're getting Jaden Daniels. Nobody would trade him. Even those guys probably not. But if you're a team that you're looking at and the team has, Josh Allen, they're 3-5, maybe you could potentially get him with another piece and a quarterback or something like that. I don't even think that you could, but maybe you can. So those are the only guys I'd be looking to trade for. What about tight end?
Tight end, man. Just,
Well,
feel like
I will
feel like
say
a
there's
few guys. That's it.
I mean, damn, George Kittle. He's a
Kittle.
stud.
Kittle's a stud. I think
I don't think you
Njoku
could
and
get
Ingram
him
are
though.
up there. Brock Bowers up there.
Do you think that you could get George Kittle if a team's
Yeah,
like 3-5?
I think you can get George Kittle. It just
Because
depends
he's on
on
bye this week too. That
he's
team
on
needs a win,
bye, but you would have to give up somebody. You'd have to give up a really good piece.
a really
though.
good one.
Yeah, that's the only thing with Kittle and like Kyle Pitts. It's like, what do we do with Kyle Pitts now?
Mhm.
After 2 touchdown game, like I just think the tight end position is kind of like you have almost like the tight end position is like you have who you have right now.
Yeah.
Like you can't really. There's not a whole lot of like because we've seen a lot of fluctuation with it. Kelsey is at the bottom, but he's still valued. Like Andrews, you're not gonna be able to get for cheap because of the name value. Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, they've been middling, but the person who drafted him probably still believes in him. And then you got the guys, your Njoku, Ingram, Brock Bowers, and Kittle at the top. You're waiting on TJ Hawkinson, and like you kind of just have who
You
have
can
right
maybe
now.
buy high into a situation though, like an Evan Ingram potentially, because I think that like for the rest of the season from this point forward, there's a real chance he could be a top 3 tight end, maybe even potentially borderline tight end 1 for the rest of the way, just because of like Brian Thomas misses time. Like the dude's going to be, if it's a
But the
full point
problem
PPR
is,
league.
the problem is that you have to give up somebody. You have to give up an asset, right? Like if I had Kyle Pitts and I had to trade up for Evan Ingram, what's the other person going to ask for?
Yeah,
You
it's
know
like
what I
a
mean? Like
kind of
that's the problem.
but okay, say you have Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews been playing better as of late, but I don't know,
Yeah, like what else are you
a
going to pair that
lateral
with? If
move.
I have Evan Ingram, you send me Mark Andrews, I'm gonna be like, nah, I need
Well,
like
yeah, another
starting caliber
piece.
piece.
But I think that for the rest of the year, I wouldn't be shocked if Evan Ingram was fantastic at the end of the year last year.
He'll be better than
He
Mark
was
Andrews.
great. Yes. And that's what I'm saying. Those because what it comes down to at the end of the year in the playoffs, especially in the playoffs, it comes down to luck, like you said. But where the margin of error for these games and you have games in the playoffs that sometimes it's just unfortunate. You get blown out, your team puts up a stinker, but other times you're playing another really good team
Yeah.
where 5 points could become the difference in these kind of games. Like last year in the championship, it was the number one and number two team, me against him. Justin Jefferson killed me, but I lost by 6 points. Where, hey, if I traded for a guy like an Evan Ingram instead of having a guy like Mark Andrews, where he gets me 10 points, but Evan Ingram has a great week because he's kind of like the number two, number one option on that team. He has 16 points. That could be the difference between. So I'm not saying like it's an absolute must thing, but like at the end of the year, those points just become so much more valuable because the team that you're going against is another loaded team. So you're just
Yeah.
going stud versus stud. You're counting points at that time. So I'm not saying like it has to make sense, but like a couple guys, I'll be buying high on him, and I'll be also potentially buying high on the opportunity that David Njoku possesses, where he could be an absolute stud down the stretch, like a
It's just
stud.
it's tough because there's about 10 tight ends who could, you know what I mean, who have like
No, what's
top five
crazy is that we were
potential,
just saying
top
how
five
bad it
potential.
was,
Yeah,
and
but
now it's kind of becoming a little bit good now, though.
it's bad
Like
in a way that like it's so inconsistent. I think that's the bad
it
part
has
about it,
been,
but
it
it's
has
gotten
been.
better
I think
though.
it's getting better, and there's some of these guys where I'd really love to have Njoku on my team right now, man.
What's up? Come
He's
get him
gonna be good.
in the league, bro. And shout out to you, bro. I think you beat me in our Henry Health League, where I think you
Yeah,
have a better record than me right now. And then
my quarterbacks are good.
yeah, but my whatchamacallit, my guys, the Henry guys are tearing shit up right now.
Are
And
they?
then
I
you beat me
haven't
in the
looked.
fantasy basketball league too. So shout out to you, bro. Got some early wins on me. I'm gonna come back though. All right, well, that does it for this one, guys. We will see y'all on the next one. Peace out.